टू कैलकुलेट द इनकम टैक्स लायबिलिटी ऑफ एनी एसएससी, अगर हमने यानी कि किसी भी बंदे की जो इनकम जनरेट कर रहा है, चाहे वो कॉर्पोरेट हो चाहे वो नॉन कॉर्पोरेट हो, उसकी अगर इनकम टैक्स की लायबिलिटी को जनरेट करना है, देन ऑब्वियसली द फर्स्ट स्टेप हैज टू बी हाउ टू कैलकुलेट द इनकम. So as per the sections provision of section 10, that is the incomes which are exempt, and as per the provisions of section 14, which specifies various heads of income, we will be able to calculate the incomes which are taxable under various heads. And then once we have calculated the income for a particular previous year, then we will calculate the tax as per the applicable tax rates, and then such tax will be paid in the assessment year. But before we enter into this important discussion about the calculation of head, one of the most important aspect has to be that because you are paying tax in the domestic territory of a country, and if we are concerned about the Indian income tax, so we believe that our India is our domestic territory. So because we are paying the tax to the Indian government, whereas when you generate your income, this income may be generated from outside India. So there will always be a question to be asked कि आपकी सिर्फ इंडियन इनकम पर आप इंडियन गवर्नमेंट को टैक्स पे करेंगे, या अगर आपकी किसी बाहर की कंट्री से कोई फॉरेन इनकम है उसके ऊपर भी आप इंडियन गवर्नमेंट को टैक्स पे करेंगे. So what the act has done, that they have divided section 5 to be read in light of section 6, where to properly understand section 5, you need to know the word used in section 6, which says residential status. So we will, as per section 6 provisions, classify all assessees. If they are individual or HUF, then primarily as resident and ordinary resident, resident but not ordinarily resident, and non-resident. And if they are other assessees instead of individual and HUF, for example, corporates, firms, associations, business body of individuals, etc., then there will be only two classifications, resident and non-residents. And we can also say that this ROR is the common word for resident. So, subject to the provisions of section 6, where the individual and the HUF will be classified as resident, non-ordinary resident, and non-resident, and the others will be classified as residents and non-residents, and there will not be any sub-classification. We have to understand the provisions of section 5, known as the incidence of the tax, or sometimes we use the word scope of income, and what it implies that based on the place of receipt, and we are using the word receipt. So before I move on, we should be clarifying that receipt is different from remittances. तो फॉर एग्जाम्पल, अगर आप किसी कंपनी में नौकरी कर रहे हैं तो आप एम्प्लॉय हो और आपका बॉस यानी कि एम्प्लॉयर. अब आपने एज एन एम्प्लॉय अपने एम्प्लॉयर को अपनी सर्विसेज दी. उन सर्विसेज के बदले आपका एम्प्लॉयर आपको सैलरी देगा. अब ये सैलरी या तो आपकी कैश हुई या आपकी बैंक अकाउंट में क्रेडिट हुई, और उससे पहले सैलरी ड्यू हुई. So once you have completed the month and as per the contract of employment, your salary becomes due. The due word we will be using accrue or arise. Only difference is accrue slowly होता है. For example, interest. Arise एकदम हो जाता है जैसे कि लॉटरी की टिकट लग गई यार. As such, they have no difference because conceptually it denotes that you have earned the income. So when we will come here, that we will be discussing not just the place of receipt but the place of such accrual or arise. Now again I come back to the word receipt. So once the salary is due, you will either receive it in the form of cash and or in the form of the bank. If you receive directly, then we use the word received, and when it gets credited to your account, then we say that it is deemed to be received. It is the word deemed to be received. So when we will use this word receipt, it includes both the direct received and the deemed to be received. But if you receive this salary and you give this salary to your wife, so the whole salary is being received by your wife from you, then this is not received, then we can say that this is remittance. And if I broadly this example, that once you have received or credited the amount in your bank, that is, the employer has given the amount directly credited in your bank account, and you pay someone else from such bank account, then that payment is your remittance because you have not earned it. You have not earned it. So remittance is a kind of second receipt. If I just broaden the example, कि आप इंडिया में बैठे हुए मिस्टर एक्स हैं, लेट्स से माई सेल्फ दीपक गुप्ता, और आपने यूएस में बैठ के किसी बिजनेस से कोई प्रॉफिट जनरेट किया और आपके पार्टनर ने वो आपके यूएस के अकाउंट में डिपॉजिट करवा दिया. So when this has been deposited in your account, then it is deemed to be received and effectively received. But when you transfer this money from your US account to your Indian account or Indian branch, then we say that the amount has been remitted to India because it has already been received in the first instance. So basically, remittance is like second or the third receipt. And why I'm classifying and emphasizing on this topic, that what the section 5 will do, that for all assessees, keeping in mind whether they are resident or not only resident or resident, and keeping in mind whether the income is received or deemed to be received, that is the place, and also the place of the accrual, we will decide about the taxability of the income under the Income Tax Act. So simply speaking, we can say that dependent upon, because income tax is a central act, so we are not concerned about the state. So broadly speaking, because the two things are important for an income, that is the receivable, directly or indirectly, whatever it is, or the accrual, which could either be direct or indirect, whatever it is. And receipt could either be in India or it could either be outside India. Similarly, accrual can be in India, for example, you are providing services in India, और इट कैन बी आउटसाइड इंडिया. फॉर एग्जांपल, आप इंडिया में बैठे हुए थे और आपका बिजनेस यूएस में था, तो जो भी प्रॉफिट अक्रू हुआ है वो इंडिया से बाहर अक्रू हुआ है. तो अगर आप सैलरी वाला एग्जांपल देखेंगे, तो वहाँ प्लेस ऑफ सर्विसेज वाज इन इंडिया एंड द सैलरी वाज रिसीव्ड इन इंडिया, so it was an income which, so we can say that it was an income which was accrue प्लस रिसीव्ड, यानी कि दोनों के दोनों काम इंडिया में हुए. और अगर मैंने एग्जांपल लिया यूएस बिजनेस वाला, तो वहां पर अक्रू भी इंडिया से बाहर हुआ और रिसीवल भी इंडिया से बाहर हुआ. तो वी कैन से दैट अक्रूवल प्लस रिसीव्ड आर बोथ आउटसाइड इंडिया, एंड इन बिटवीन वी कैन हैव इनकम जिसका अक्रूवल तो शायद इंडिया में हो लेकिन रिसीव्ड इंडिया से बाहर हो. और वी कैन हैव अ केस ऐसी इनकम जिसका अक्रूवल तो इंडिया से बाहर हो, जैसे कि अभी यूएस वाला बिजनेस, बट रिसीव्ड इन इंडिया हो, यानी कि उस वाले केस में, in that case the US business profits were not deposited in the US account but they were credited directly in your Indian account. So the place of receipt or the place of the deemed to be received was in India. So अगर आप ये तीनों के तीनों फर्स्ट एग्जांपल्स नोटिस करेंगे, तो यहाँ चाहे तो अक्रूवल और चाहे रिसीवल, तो अक्रूवल और रिसीव्ड में से अगर कोई भी एक चीज इंडिया में हो जाए, चाहे ये वाला चाहे ये वाला, यानी कि अक्रूवल और रिसीव, आई एम जस्ट समराइजिंग that the language of the act has been summarized for you so that you are easily to understand कि अगर इनकम का अक्रू या रिसीवल दोनों में से एक भी काम इंडिया में हो जाए, तो इन तीनों केसेस में नीचे वाले दो केसेस में या तो अक्रूवल है या रिसीवल इंडिया में है, और फर्स्ट केस में दोनों इंडिया में है, देन ऑल दीज थ्री काइंड ऑफ इनकम वी कैन सिंपली से दैट दे विल बी टर्म्ड एज इंडियन इनकम्स। और ये जो फोर्थ इनकम है जिसमें ना तो अक्रूवल ना रिसीवल इंडिया में है, दोनों के दोनों इंडिया से बाहर हैं, देन वी कैन से दैट इट इज अ काइंड ऑफ फॉरेन इनकम, subject to the clause that whatever income we are discussing is a taxable income, because if it is an income exempt under section 10, then there is no taxation and there is no point of discussing about its taxability. So once, as per the provision of section 5, we are able to identify the place of the accrual in the receivable of the income, and based on that we can summarize whether it's an income or accrued or received in India or outside. We can simply say whether it's an Indian income or the foreign income. And then section 5 says that if you are an ordinary resident, then you will be liable to pay tax on all four kind of incomes, that is all three kinds of Indian incomes plus the loan foreign income that you have generated during the previous year will be taxed in the assessment year. So, in a way, if you are a resident and on a resident, and if you're individual, it means you have satisfied the conditions of category A as well as category B, then we will summarize that you will be liable to pay tax on your all incomes, irrespective of their place of accrual, irrespective of their place of receival, only subject to the exemption that such income is not chargeable to tax. Similarly, if you are a resident but not ordinary resident, then because you are staying less in India, that is why your taxability will be reduced. तो व्हाट वी आर सेइंग कि अगर आरओआर के लिए इंडियन और फॉरेन हर तरह की इनकम टैक्सेबल होगी, तो आरएनओआर की टैक्सेबिलिटी थोड़ी सी कम हो जाएगी, बिकॉज द लेसर यू स्टे द लेस यू शुड पे. So what we will do, that if you are an RNOR, then like resident, you will be liable to pay tax on all Indian incomes. यानी कि अगर कोई ऐसी इनकम है जो इंडिया में ड्यू है या रिसीव्ड है, दोनों काम है, then that will always be taxed. But if you are a RNOR, then you are not liable to pay tax on all foreign incomes. आप आरओआर की तरह सारी फॉरेन इनकम पे टैक्स नहीं दोगे, बट ओनली वन काइंड और वन स्पेशल काइंड ऑफ फॉरेन इनकम विल बी टैक्स्ड, विच इज फ्रॉम सच बिजनेस एंड प्रोफेशन, और बिजनेस और प्रोफेशन आई शुड से, बिकॉज इट मे नॉट हैपन कि आप दोनों में इन्वॉल्व हो, which has been which has been controlled or managed from India. यानी कि एग्जाम्पल के तौर पे, जैसे कि आपका बिजनेस तो यूएस में था, तो बिजनेस की सेल वहीं हुई तो अक्रू बाहर हुआ, उसका पैसा का रिसीव हुआ यूएस में, तो अक्रूवल रिसीवल दोनों इंडिया से बाहर है, दैट इज व्हाई इट इज अ फॉरेन इनकम, बट such business has been controlled by India. So if it is a proprietorship, then the proprietor lives in India and from there he controls it. इफ इट इज अ बिजनेस कॉर्पोरेट कॉन्सेप्ट, यानी कि कंपनी के फॉर्मेट में काम कर रहे हो, तो कंपनी की सारा जो कंट्रोल मैनेजमेंट है वो बोर्ड ऑफ डायरेक्टर्स के पास है, एंड वी presume that all the meetings of the board of directors are held in India, and that's why such business is generating foreign income, but such business has been controlled from India, and hence such foreign income will be taxable for RNOR. So the point to be noted is that an ROR will be liable to pay tax on all kind of foreign incomes, irrespective of their nature. But because a RNOR lives less in India than an ROR, so its taxability has been reduced to the extent that not all foreign incomes will be taxed. Instead, one special kind of foreign income will be taxed. And therefore, when we comes to a clause of non-resident, so they are primarily those who are either not staying in India or their stay is too less to satisfy the conditions of category A, and hence government believes that no foreign income should be taxed for such people. सो नॉन रेजिडेंट्स की फॉरेन इनकम पे टैक्स नहीं लगता। और अगर ये लॉ ना होता तो शायद हम ये कहते हैं कि डोनाल्ड ट्रंप इंडिया के लॉ के हिसाब से नॉन रेजिडेंट है, इन स्पाइट ऑफ द फैक्ट कि वो वन ऑफ द रिचेस्ट यूएस सिटीजन है, बट इंडियन लॉ के हिसाब से ही इज अ नॉन रेजिडेंट। वी डोंट केयर वेदर ही पेज टैक्स इन यूएस और नॉट, बट आवर लॉ से that non-resident of India will be liable to pay tax in India. So that will become an absurd law because you can't force the citizens of other country to pay tax to our country. And that is why government, as per the Income Tax Act, has very smartly exempted all non-residents not to pay any tax on their foreign income because that can't be enforced. But if such non-residents have any kind of Indian income, that is आइदर लिविंग आउटसाइड इंडिया और आई शुड से इंडिया से बाहर रहने के बावजूद भी वो इंडिया से जनरेट कर रहे हैं, इंडिया में कोई बिजनेस मेंटेन कर रखा है या किसी और तरीके से इंडिया में बिजनेस जनरेट कर रहे हैं, तो चाहे इस पैसे का प्लेस ऑफ रिसीवल डायरेक्टली आउटसाइड कंट्री क्यों ना हो, अक्रूवल क्योंकि इंडिया में हुआ है, दैट विल बिकम इंडियन कंपनी और सॉरी इंडियन इनकम एंड हेंस सच इनकम विल बी टैक्स। सिमिलरली अगर आपका अक्रूवल इंडिया से बाहर हुआ है लेकिन उस पैसे को आप डायरेक्टली इंडिया में रिसीव कर रहे हो, अगर आप रेमिटेंस कर रहे हो देन वी डोंट केयर। तो जैसे ऊपर वाले एग्जांपल में यूएस बिजनेस था, यूएस में अक्रू हुआ, यूएस में रिसीव हुआ और उसके बाद रेमिटेंस हुई इंडिया में, तो रेमिटेंस इंपॉर्टेंट नहीं है क्योंकि अक्रूवल बाहर है, रिसीवल बाहर है, तो फॉरेन इनकम है। तो अगर ओनरशिप किसी नॉन रेजिडेंट के पास है तो वो उसके ऊपर कोई टैक्स नहीं देगा। तो यू विल सी and observe two things, that the taxability of the foreign income will be reduced as your stay in India gets reduced. But all kind of Indian incomes, that is the incomes which are either accruing in India, it means आप कुछ ऐसा पैसा कमा रहे हो जो कि इंडिया से जनरेट हो रहा है या पैसे को डायरेक्टली इंडिया में रिसीव कर रहे हो चाहे कमा किसी और कंट्री में रहे हो, then the government say that we have the control on such incomes. So if you want to avoid tax, get out of the country or become non-resident. And if you are generating from our economy, either through accrual or receivable, then that will also be taxed irrespective of your residential status. So all kind of Indian incomes which are accruing and receiving in India will be taxed in India irrespective of the residential status. And therefore, Section 5 underlines that the difference in the taxability will come only through the place and or should say the place of accrual and the place of receival if both being outside India. Otherwise, even if one of them falls into the place of India, then that will be taxed, and that is why remittances play a very important part. कि अगर कोई नॉन रेजिडेंट है और उसकी इनकम का प्राइमरी सोर्स इंडिया से बाहर है, तो वो उस पैसे को डायरेक्टली इंडिया में रिसीव नहीं करता, उस पैसे को बाहर रिसीव करता है, तो उससे वो इनकम उसकी फॉरेन इनकम बन जाती है और इसलिए वो फॉरेन इनकम पे नॉन रेजिडेंट को टैक्स देने की जरूरत नहीं है। बट अगर उस पैसे को उसको इंडिया में लेकर आना है देन ही मेक्स रेमिटेंसेस, एंड दैट इज व्हाई द मल्टीनेशनल बैंक्स लाइक सिटी बैंक, लाइक एचएसबीसी, they come into play because they have branches in all over the world. So if you earn from one country and you because you have a branch in India, then from the any branch banking you deposit in one branch and you get it out in another branch from India, and that what you call remittances. And similarly, you have various remitters, like you have heard the name of Western Union Money Transfer. So they are the people who are basically remitters. For example, they will receive the money in another country and will pay back in the country of your choice. So in a way, अगर वेस्टर्न यूनियन जैसे लोगों का ट्रांजेक्शन इलीगल होनी शुरू हो जाए, उन्हीं को हम लोग कॉमन सेंस में क्या बोलना शुरू कर देते हैं, हवाला। तो they are the genuine way of doing, and hawala is the legal way of transferring or remitting money from one country to another. Another example that I can discuss, that Indians are so passionate about the IPL, and the basic attraction in IPL is always the foreign players. And such foreign players And I will go to the extent that in the earlier stages of the IPL was a longer format. But that longer format, in my opinion, was hindering with the conditions of category A and was basically for the longer stay of certain players, making them resident. And that was increasing their tax liability and they were shifting their burden on the franchisee. So I believe that to have an impact where all such foreign players remain non-resident, the format of the IPL was reduced so that most of the players will not fulfill the conditions of category A and hence they will remain non-resident. But it does not mean that they will not be liable to pay tax on their IPL fees because they are playing in India. That is why their fees is accruing in India. And because of fees is accruing in India, इसलिए वो सारा का सारा पैसा क्या बनेगा इंडियन इनकम और इंडियन इनकम पर टैक्स देना पड़ेगा चाहे आप नॉन रेजिडेंट क्यों ना हो. That is why all foreign players, in spite of not satisfying conditions of category A and becoming non-resident, are subjected to pay tax on their IPL fees because that becomes an Indian income. Though we have a special provision of taxation on such a sports person where a straightforward tax of 10% is charged in the form of the TDS, irrespective of the slab rates. So we will discuss those things in detail, but I believe that now, as per Section 5, you will be able to relate the residential status as determined under Section 6 with the place of the accrual and the place of receipt of the income. And thank you.